All right, guys. Welcome back to the show. Today is Misty and I leasing tips, getting your property leased. So, just kind of start out. Misty actually has gone through recently. It's moving season, right?
Yep.
It's moving season. So as we're recording this, guys, it's in May, and of course in May and April, May, June, even in July, it's moving
Mhm.
season. It's just what it is. It's kind of like duck season, right? It's moving season. Um, I wanted to think it'd be a great time for Misty to kind of break down a couple things that she's gone through. She's gone through, and she's still going through a hell of a lease stint where she's got a lot of lease listings that have gone on market, and she's working on a lot of leases. And of course, obviously, it starts to kind of tone down later in the year, but I think it'd be a good time for us to talk about that. So, kind of what you as a landlord, if you have a property and it's leasing season, what you should do. So, Misty, you want to take it away, kind of talk a little bit about kind of what you've gone through and what you're seeing, and just some tips and some stuff that you see that maybe landlords should do that stops people from either leasing a property or makes things a little harder.
Yeah. So, taking on a couple of new clients, and so they are all asking the questions, how long do you think it'll take to lease? It's a standard question that everybody asks.
And it's
And
different, right?
it
It
is.
really isn't the same for you can't be like, "It's gonna be 1 week." That's a lie. You have no idea. You could guess, right?
Mhm.
You know?
Yeah.
When you see when you like so let me ask this, if you were to take a guess, what makes you kind of formulate that guess? Like, do you see
It
something?
it depends on the property, if it's a nice property that's well taken care of, you can tell that they fix issues.
Mhm.
And that it's also in a good area.
Yeah.
That helps as well.
So if you walk in and it looks taken care of,
Yeah.
you could assume, it's not always the case, but you could assume that it's probably gonna lease quick, right?
Yes. So a lot of people don't think about it this way, but if you have a home on the market, so it's on the market available for lease, that's basically them putting their best foot forward, right?
Yeah.
And so if you walk in and it's dirty and there's bugs everywhere and the lawn's not kept up,
Mhm.
the utilities are off, so you got to get your little cell phone flashlight out.
Yeah.
um, it doesn't start the foot off right.
Yeah.
And so that right there is going to deter someone from even applying because not only do I mean it's not like it was in 2021 where you know there was not a lot of homes available, so everybody needed a place, and each property had 30 apps on it.
It moved fast.
Yes.
I remember hearing something that kinda mentioned that. You said 2021. I can't place it, but I remember I think you and I might have heard this on a podcast itself. They were talking about the amount of homes that the economists were saying, this many homes are supposed to be built in order to keep up with, the demand
Mhm.
of new people, being born, and and then kind of the older as generations move forward, and then whoever's dying off. But they under guessed, and so that was part of 2021. So
Yeah.
I heard that on another podcast. I don't remember the exact one, but I got to go look it up because the person I know they were interested to listen to. So, but yeah, so I mean, you're so in 2021 it was just going wild, and you didn't
Yeah.
have to really
So
put effort, right?
yeah, they would say, "I'll take it no matter what. I'll take it."
Yeah,
But they're not doing that anymore, and there's a lot more, competition out there, and so you got to price it right, and you got to make sure you're putting that best foot forward
hmm,
and actually making your property look nice because they have options.
yeah.
And so if you have bugs crawling around and your grass is overgrown, and they're going to be like, "No, thank you."
So did you ever watch Joe's Apartment? You never
No.
watched Joe's
You told me
Apartment?
about it. I haven't
Oh
watched it.
man. All right. So for those of you out there, if you know MTV, man, Joe's Apartment. So if you walk in, it looks like Joe's apartment. Joe's Apartment, man. He had like he walks in, he's got all the cockroaches that are his friends. And like, you know what I mean? Like they hang out with the girls, and like he brings girls over. Dude, I have to like pull a clip. We'll have to
Oh
put a
gosh.
clip on the YouTube podcast or something, man. He walks in, he's like, it turned to him. It was a short, and it turned to a movie Uh, you never saw that.
No.
Dude. Yeah, you can't look like Joe's apartment, man. And they're talking cockroaches too, by the way. They actually like chit chat, which is pretty cool. And then he'd bring dates over or whatnot. So and the
Mm-mm.
cockroaches would crawl on the girls. Yeah, it was pretty gross. So yeah, so if it looks like Joe's apartment in 2021, it might not have been a big of a deal for
Yep.
some people, but now you can't have Joe's apartment.
Yeah, not unless the price is down there with it.
But some landlords actually let it look like Joe's apartment a little bit,
Yeah.
and then they'll try to lease it out, right?
hmm
So I mean, you've seen that where because you don't just do lease listings, but you work with lease leads as well. People trying to
Correct.
get a
Find a
place,
place.
and so you see that a lot. So what are some of the things so kind of go back to a landlord? What's some of the stuff they can fix or they can do to help? I want to say make sure. I'm not necessarily talking.
To put their best foot forward.
Yeah, there we go.
So especially when a property is vacant, you need to keep eyes on it. You need to keep it, make sure the utilities are on, because it is kind of frustrating, especially now. People are looking at places later in the evening and stuff because it's almost summertime and
Mhm.
and stuff. But even though it might be light still outside, it's kind of hard to see inside a lot of things, especially smaller areas like closets and bathrooms and things like that. And, bathrooms is one of the big things that people like to look at, because you spend time in there, you want to be comfortable. And,
Yeah.
some need a bathtub, some don't. And, so lots of opinions and stuff. And that's one of the areas that they like to see. So make sure they can see it. So,
You need to have a nice
so
throne.
so have those utilities on and make it comfortable inside. When they walk in the summertime, it's not 88 degrees in there and they're sweating or just walking around from room to room. So make it comfortable, inviting. The lawn needs to be taken care of, because if they're that creates a pest problem if you don't.
Yeah.
You'll have bugs and rats and things like that. So you want to keep that under control, because it'll save you in the long run.
I think too, what people have is, and you guys, I mean, I'm sure someone listening can attest to it themselves, but when you see something on a regular, your eyes start to kind of ignore it. You don't really notice it. But
Yep.
if you've never seen it, you almost notice everything, right?
Yep.
So, if maybe there's a certain blemish that you've walked by numerous times, your eye gets, it's why billboards change. Billboards change all the time because they need you to look at it again. But after you drive by it 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, after a while, you kind of become blind to it. So I think the
hmm
same thing can happen as a landlord if you've kind of accepted that, well, we're not going to do this. And so you kind of become blind to it. You don't focus on it. But then the potential tenant's never seen it. And they may not say it, but they zero in on that.
Yeah.
So like the
Fresh
lawn,
eyes.
yeah.
Yeah.
So like the lawn, you might be like, I've walked past this lawn so many times trying to get the inside of the house ready. And then you kind of walk by and you're just like, it's not that bad.
Overlook the details.
Yeah, you're like, it's not that bad. And so you just keep it moving.
Yeah.
So I
And
can see
then
that.
it just takes a little bit of time, and that yard is looking from okay to whoa.
Yeah. And it's the
We have a
first thing
problem.
they see, right?
Yep. And then they do it once, and they don't put it on a regular schedule. That's something that should be done, because you don't know how long the property is going to be vacant.
Even just mowing.
Yeah.
I mean,
And so like you do it once and you're like, okay, I'm good. But then the property, sometimes, depending on the property, might sit there for, in this market, 45 days, 60 days, something
mhm.
like that. Well, it's got to be done more than once during that time, and grass is pretty persistent.
Yeah.
And so are those weeds.
And you've seen homes that are redone homes and nice.
Yep.
Sit 45 days, 60
Yeah.
days.
Yep.
You've seen that
It's just the
happen.
market right now.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, the outside can deter someone from even inquiring.
hmm
If they pull up or drive by and it looks a mess, they just keep going.
Yeah. This is not, yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's it.
You got to have good curb appeal.
Yep.
So,
It's easy to skip out on though because you think you spent so much time on the inside and then you're
mhm.
like, fuck the outside. We'll just put a sign in it. They'll be fine.
It's fine.
They can
Just
look
mow it. Yeah.
they can look past it, but not every time.
Yeah.
Not everyone can. If I can tell you, like, just it depends on individuals, but I know some individuals who, whether investor or, I make fun of my mom. Martha Story. They used to call me they used to call me Martha Story when I was a kid because my mom's house is like pristine, right? So my mom would walk through there and be like, "Oh damn, like y'all need to take care." It's like Men in Black, when he hits him with the neuralizer,
Yeah.
and he's like, and he tells the lady, "You need to do something about this place and clean all this up." Like she would see that stuff, and of course, it would look past it. Where someone else, I mean, and I think that kind of will show your tenant too. I mean, if your tenant is not, they don't look past. If they look past those things, what else are they gonna look past?
Yeah.
So that's another thing too. So
And I think a lot of owners don't realize how much upfront expenses these tenants have. Because I mean, just to apply for a property can be anywhere from $30 to $100 every time per
Mhm.
individual. So if they have, 2 adults, that's times 2.
Mhm.
And then sometimes they've applied for 3 or 4 properties and still are looking. So they're going to have more application fees.
Yeah.
They've already spent $500-$600 in application fees, and they're still having to apply for more.
Mhm.
And so they're doing that. And then when they actually do get one, sometimes there's, other fees that they have to pay, like administrative fees. And then, of course, there's security deposit, pet deposit, utilities, all that stuff. So, yeah, they might be looking at it and, man, this yard, it needs a lot of work. I don't have that kind of money.
Yeah.
And let's just find something that's move-in ready.
When really it was $30 to just mow the lawn.
Yeah, it was just one more thing added to the list that just deterred them from applying.
Yeah.
So,
By the way, guys, I don't mow lawns. I'd been like, that's $30. We gotta pay somebody. It's more extra, right? So, it's another thing I've seen, and kind of talk about this is, there's obviously more supply right now. It's moving season. You've had people apply, drop out. Like literally
Yes.
go through the entire thing, got the lease
Got approved, got
approved,
the lease sent out.
everything, and they were responsive as hell until right up to the point of it's time to sign the lease. What do you think that is?
Crickets.
Why do you think that is?
Because there's so many options out there right now.
Yeah.
And so in between that time where they loved it and, they got approved and then they slept on it and getting that lease sent out to them and you know what? 5 other properties popped up.
Yeah.
And they're like, ooh, shiny new thing.
Yeah. And it's not like you said on the lease stuff. I mean, you went through and looked at everything really fast, as quick as you could to, do employment verification and all that stuff. And, you can only be as fast as they are responding, right?
Correct.
You can't be, if they're dragging their feet, you can't be super fast.
Correct.
So, but you're right, more supply. So people, again, moving season, they're starting to, more stuff comes on the market. They're like, hey, I like that, honey. Let's go take a look at that.
Yep.
And they'll throw their, $69 away, $70, $80, whatever, application fee, $50, or whether maybe they didn't have an application fee, but, they'll throw that away, just turn around and go get the other one.
Yep.
So they're not really tied to, I got to have that, which puts you in a position of what you need to make sure that, I think you said your best foot forward, right? So you've got to make sure that when you do this, that you're essentially selling it. You have to sell the idea of the home without the home talking to them, right? Home can't be like, come on in. Like,
Yep.
It has to have that.
Yeah, because sometimes you get those applicants or tenants that they're like, I like it. I want to apply for it. But would the owner do this or would they do that? And you're kind of negotiating back and forth between them and the owner. And in that time, because it's something that should have been taken care of ahead of time and it wasn't, like maybe the trees in the backyard were like falling down or something, can the landlord take care of that if we were to apply and get approved and blah, 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 maybe something to that effect. And so you're going back and forth and negotiating, you finally get it. And then, in the meantime, something else popped up and they changed their mind.
Yeah.
So
And it's out.
You want to eliminate all of that room and just have it ready to go.
There's definitely more negotiation going on too. Or more people are asking, right? Yeah, they're like before,
Yeah,
before
that's
20,
the listing price. That's what it's going for, and that's what you need to
no,
pay.
yeah, no questions
And
asked.
now, you're starting to see a few, some people saying, "Hey, you know what? I would you take this for it?"
Mhm. And they'll start to negotiate with it. So I know a couple properties that you've been working as well. They actually they have like 2 units.
Hmm.
Talk about that a little bit. Like it's got one unit on like a back side and a unit in the front. What do you see with that? Kind of talk a little
Yeah,
about what
front
you're.
house and a back house on the same property and stuff. So, yeah, those have their own challenges, especially if the utilities are all tied together.
Hmm.
That's another challenge, because one, unless the landlord's going to take care of utilities and bill them back or just roll it into the rent or something, one unit's responsible for utilities for both, and then you have to either give them a credit back or have unit B pay for unit A, or however you want to work that. It's kind of a tricky situation. I recommend that the landlord just take care of it and roll it into the rent. But
Yeah. I mean, it's so like in Dallas, that stuff's really common.
hmm.
And there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, people, when I remember, I know I've told you this before, Misty, thinking back, I had a best friend, Emily, my best friend growing up, Emily, had her mom, when they moved to Dallas, or her mom moved to Dallas, Emily was an adult at that time, or yeah, no, teenager, we were teenagers. But when she moved to Dallas, she lived in a cottage in the back of the house, which is a really kick-ass cottage. I'll never forget that. I walked in and was like,
Some of them are really
I was
nice.
like, this
Yep.
thing is freaking awesome. But I remember walking up, and I didn't know any different. I'm probably 18 at the time, 17, 18. Uh, and I walk up the driveway, because Emily's like, hey, I'm at my mom's. She lives here in the back. So I was like, all right, cool. So, and Emily didn't live there. Emily was just visiting. So I walk up the driveway. I remember going in, like, I kind of like, what the fuck is this setup? Like it didn't make any sense to me, right? I mean, it does now, but it didn't make any
Go
sense to
around the
me.
corner, knock
Yeah,
3 times.
you know what I mean? I was like, and it was a small little. I mean, it was a small little cottage, man.
Mhm.
And I kind of like, okay. And I remember like looking at the house, and I'm like, okay, what is the fuck? So I go, I do go to the cottage, go in, and she kind of tells me like, hey, this is, yeah, I've been renting this for a little bit. It's a cool little place, but and of course it had everything it needed. It had all the amenities. I mean, it was a room. I mean, it was pretty cool. It was a very small little room, kind of what you're working at least right now,
Mhm.
but it was laid out really nice. And then she just, I mean, it was the same driveway for the same property, but just being on the other side of that now, and you being on the other side, I see, you obviously there's a difference. Then I didn't know the inner workings of that. I'm 17 years old, but
Yeah.
now 20 plus years later, you see it. So, but yeah, challenges is things like the utilities. It's not.
Yeah. And then yard, who's responsible for the yard?
Mhm.
Is it a shared yard? Is there a fence, separating the two areas, or, how's that work? And then, oh, they have pets. Okay, well, are the pets going to be an issue between the two tenants?
Mhm.
Or, so yeah, a lot of things to work out in those situations, but
It's doable.
yeah, it's
There's not,
definitely
there's
doable.
nothing wrong with it. It's doable. It's just, it makes it might take a little longer to lease.
I think it takes a certain type of tenant, because, if they're going to have a shared space and stuff, a lot of them, would prefer like an apartment, or,
Hmm.
it all depends on what their needs are and what they're looking for. Some people prefer that type because they actually can get a yard and stuff. So if they have pets or young children that they want to play outside or something, it's a safer environment and stuff, but they can't afford maybe just a single family home by themselves. And
Yeah.
so that's um, a great option for them.
Well, in this case, I mean, just kind of talking about that, the cottage that I was mentioning with my best friend Emily growing up was her mom lived alone, so it
Hmm.
was perfect.
Yeah,
It was just her. Her mom's, I think her mom and my mom were close in
she
age.
didn't need a lot.
She didn't need a lot. She really didn't. Emily
Didn't want to
lived.
have to maintain this huge yard.
Yeah, in fact, I think
And
Emily lived. She lived with her dad at that time, a little south of DFW. So in Alvarado at that time. So, but her mom moved to Dallas, and it was actually, and the area was again where it's common. It's common in Dallas, where it was like Hall Street and just kind of, it was on the was the west, no, the east side of Oakland, basically before 75. So once you like Turtle Creek and that, basically Turtle Creek, that little area. So Oakland, Turtle Creek, and it kind of moves into uptown and all that stuff. So it was kind of in that area, which is real common over there. But again, she didn't really need a lot, and I think she was there for probably a year. But it makes sense. I mean, when you're like, hey, I'm out, and she didn't need a lot, she needed to move, and so but I can see it. But I can see the challenges. I mean, you've got to make sure those things are. It's going to take that certain tenant.
Yeah.
I can see that taking that certain tenant. Otherwise,
Yeah. Some are like, "Ooh, I don't want, some stranger living in the backyard, or,
mhm.
I've got kids, or that's weird, or,
Well,
but of course, you do background checks and all that.
yeah,
So, that shouldn't be a major concern or anything. It's just, if it is a shared space, you have to come to terms with that.
I think too. So I know, like for us, the where we live, we actually have a large building towards the end of the property,
Hmm.
and I remember the first time we talked about leasing it out to someone we didn't know, we were
Yeah.
like,
No.
hell no, why would I ever? Now I'm like, some who wants this thing. Um, and that was a prime example of talking about leasing, right? Because we do a little commercial stuff, but leasing that out, our eyes were so blind to certain things that if we didn't actually do, though, if we didn't clean it up, that kind of stuff, like we just see it every day, so it's not as big of a deal.
Yeah.
But I know the moment you and I went down and we're like, hey, grab a shovel.
We're gonna spend 10 hours out
We
here
got some
working.
shit. We got some shit to square away, man. And as soon as that happened, it was almost immediate. Like it was just like
Hmm.
it got leased, But hanging on to it, like, oh man, it's not that big a deal. Like, and this is something obviously that we manage, but it's it took a while. But then as soon as it hit, like we cleaned up certain items because it was all cleaned out. It was ready to go. Empty. It's an empty warehouse space. It was all cleaned out, ready to go. But then once we actually, you and I spent time cleaning out the drain, which I mean, really isn't that big of a deal, but I mean, it did. There's a drain there, and once we spent, it was about 10 hours.
Hmm.
I mean, just
And trimming trees
trimming
and
trees. I mean, just stuff
yeah.
like that, basic shit, like literally spring cleaning,
Yeah.
I guess you could say.
Yeah. A bunch of new
Um,
growth
New growth, and
spurted up.
but it did what? It immediately, just like with a residential property, immediately. I mean, it was quick.
Yep.
When we came in, they did their application. They,
Hmm.
did their background check, everything, boom, boom, and then in. I mean, it was
Yep.
it was fast. So,
And
yeah,
I would also say another thing, another quick tip to make your property lease faster would be to do some small decoration type thing. So like one of the properties I've listed recently, I mean, it was on the market less than a week.
yeah,
I posted it Tuesday night, and by Friday we were pulling it off the market with no more showings, because we'd already received quite a bit of interest and some applications, and we were overwhelming the owner.
Well, the
So
owner actually
yeah.
lives at the property currently,
Hmm.
but what did they do? Like, I remember you telling me, I'll kind of put it like this, and you can kind of run through it. When you said when you went to visit, you're like, hey, I was like, so how was it? She's like, well, I mean, it just looks like someone lives there. Like, it wasn't anything, it just like, they have kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's,
It's nicely decorated. She
and
did
then she
did an
just
amazing job with it. But I mean, it just,
looked normal.
like
And then,
lived in,
but then when you came back to
I
do
came back to do
pictures,
pictures, and I tell you, she did a lot of work
she,
really quickly.
she took
Yep. It
care of
it
it.
looked awesome.
She
Yeah.
basically staged it.
Yeah, basically
She
staged
went
it.
through and staged it. I saw the pictures and I was like, damn, like she staged it. And because of that staging,
Yes. We
when we,
got so much interest in apps immediately, even from some that have even been to the property yet to tour it.
ask your client if she wants to be your stager.
And so yeah, we pulled it from the market. It didn't even get through a weekend.
Yeah.
Everybody that wanted to show it on the weekend, just unfortunately missed it.
Hey,
So,
man, you hear it. Robin says all the time, you can't steal in slow motion. I mean, it's just,
and another property that I have, that we listed, it was a great property, had lots of character, had a nice front porch, but just didn't have that curb appeal in its present condition. So I recommended, putting up maybe one of those tall welcome signs and, some kind of front porch furniture
Mm-hmm.
with like bright pillows or something, to kind of lighten it up, and then a few nice plants in the front yard or something. And they went and bought a new patio set for
Mm-hmm.
that front porch because, I mean, it's just an awesome front porch. You sit out there and drink some tea or lemonade or
You
something.
don't drink tea. You drink coffee.
And it's just a great front porch. But, people just kept walking by it and
Yeah.
or driving by it and, not realizing the potential of this porch or, the charm it had. And so they went and bought new patio furniture with bright, like lime colored cushions and stuff, and, made it warm and inviting and welcoming. And now I get so much comments from the feedback on the showings of, oh my God, we love that porch. I would spend all day there.
That's funny,
Yeah.
as they would never spend any time there. But you and I are porch people. We
So,
actually eat
so
breakfast on the
just little
porch.
things like that, just, put some charm, some
Mm-hmm.
character, help people imagine themselves there, or, if you have something that just sticks out that is a great aspect of the property, doll it up.
Yeah. Yeah. I grew up on a porch. I know my parents' house is like that. It has a nice front porch. We always sat on the. I mean, it was very common. Myself, my brothers, my mom, my dad. Like we always sat on the porch. It was just kind of what you did. And just you grew up.
Hmm.
So I know that when I went to that particular property you're talking about, and while you're doing your thing, and I'm hanging out, waiting on you, I just sit on the porch.
Yep.
It's just like I'm cool, man. This is straight.
I get a lot of questions. Can the patio furniture stay with the house? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
you've had that.
Yep. Yep.
What's the answer? Absolutely.
Yes.
Extra $100. No. Yeah, no, you're definitely right. So I know I've experienced that. Just, I can imagine myself on the porch, and I'm not even moving into the place. I'm just
Yep.
like, I could sit out here when the weather's nice,
Yeah.
But that, even if you don't do it, just the idea of it can be enough to make someone go. You're. I mean, if you stop and think about it, you're emotionally moving them, right?
Yes.
You're not logic. People are emotional buyers.
Yep.
If you think about that, so it kind of that as far as like leasing tips, it kind of goes back into just some psychology that people are emotional buyers. They're not logical buyers. Now there are some that are logical. They're like it has to be a certain price. It's this and that. They're more like engineer.
Like
Might
a
be
CPA.
yeah. They might be a little more on the logical side. Engineer maybe that mindset, but a lot of individuals are very emotional when they purchase.
Hmm.
They buy shit they think they need and they don't need it, and so they don't use it, but it made them feel good when they buy it. So they buy off a feeling. So if you can get them to have that feeling when they
Yeah.
walk in the property,
That's why they have all that product by the register.
yeah. Do you get hit by that?
I don't go to stores anymore.
Okay. Is that why?
Yep.
Yeah.
Save
Yeah.
a lot of money that way.
I appreciate that as your husband. Yeah, but that it is though. I mean, we see that martial arts, emotional buyers. We see that real estate, emotional buyers. Unless it's a business transaction, right? But even still, some people can get lost in their emotions on a business transaction, right? Commercial property or something, they can fall in love with it,
Hmm.
and it can make it harder, but if you are leasing and you make them fall in love, it's sales is what it is. You make them fall in love, it just makes it easier for you to lease the property faster.
Yep.
And so you're definitely, like you said, you're one client that it didn't make it through the weekend is a prime example.
Yep.
Didn't make it through the weekend. People fell in love with it.
Show them the potential.
People applied for it and didn't even see it. They
Yep.
just saw the
Pictures.
pictures and they were like, apply, apply, apply,
Yep.
and so they're applying for it without even seeing that.
But if you have some kind of deferred maintenance or something that needs to be done, I've heard so many owners say, once I get once I get a tenant in there, I want to do this or I'm going to do that, fix the fence or whatever. Don't wait till you get a tenant in there because that's just one more obstacle that would turn someone away from applying.
Right.
And not only that, but once you get a tenant in there, then you have to coordinate schedules
Mm-hmm.
and make sure it's okay. It becomes more of a hassle. And then once you have someone in there, especially if it's like an inside thing or something, I mean, your expenses go up,
Right.
because they're going to be like, well, I got to do this. Oh, now I found this, I found that, or whatever. And they want a whole bunch of other things fixed, or just because it's so annoying to have to, work around somebody's belongings and somebody living there. I mean, it's cheaper to do it when nobody's there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's less of a headache.
Yep.
Yeah. So man, leasing guys, if you're leasing your property, little stuff matters. It's sales. You gotta emotionally, and again, we're talking to landlords that are doing. I mean, even commercial. If you're doing even on the commercial side, you still got to make someone be able to imagine that it's there. If it's they're leasing a warehouse space, it's the same thing. You got to be like, oh, okay, I can see myself here. But if you don't have it all nice and neat or cleaned up or whatever it needs to be, it's just gonna make it harder. So on leasing guys, a lot of it's emotional, not all of it, but you've got to make sure you got it cleaned up and put together. So any last things you want to throw out there that are helpful for any landlords that are trying to lease their stuff in move-in
I would
season?
I would make sure that you price it right. Be realistic with pricing. And
Oh yeah.
yes, you might be able to get the specific top dollar amount for it, but at what cost?
Mm-hmm.
At it sitting vacant for another 2 months, where you missed out on 2 months rent to make an extra $50 a month.
Yeah. Is it really?
Food for thought.
Yeah. Misty said, "Drop the mic." Food for thought. Yep. Pricing right's huge, guys. So, all right, guys. I hope that helps with that. If during moving season, good luck on your moving. If you obviously need help, you always reach out, talk to us, talk to Misty. But more importantly, hope you're more educated and like, okay, get to thinking a little bit. And no Joe's apartment, guys. Don't do it. And if you're not sure what that is, go look it up, and then you know exactly what I mean. It won't help you lease your place. So, all right, guys. We'll catch you guys next time.